Tell us more, please welcome on the stage right now, Director Marketing Graphic Solutions Business, Asia Pacific, Japan, HP Inc. Please put your hands together for Mr. Puneet Chadha.
Thank you. Can you hear me at the back? Excellent. You know, sometimes it's awesome to be a part of an organization which can actually make an impact to people's lives. Let's get some interesting facts on the table. You know, there are about 50,000 species which become extinct every year, which is about 137 species every day. Hundreds of acres of forests are actually shaved off every day, which means more than a football field every minute. You know, we know that our landfills are actually composed of 35% plastic bottles and packaging. I mean, we know all this, but what are we really doing about it as individuals? You know, I'd like to take a moment and ask all of you to close your eyes. Just close your eyes for a moment. And I'd like you to imagine that you are a part of 4 households in a village and dependent on one well of water. And the well of water is running dry. And my question to you is, what is the sense of responsibility you feel to conserve water? And what is the sense of responsibility you think your neighbors would feel? What is your expectation that they would conserve water? Please open your eyes. I don't want to take a poll here, but you know, this is a very interesting case study. It's a fascinating case study in a psychology experiment. And the way this experiment was actually done was that they broke down the group of people into 2 categories. One was actually asked the same question as what I asked, and the other one was asked a question more from a consumer perspective, saying that if you were a consumer of that water, would you actually save that? And what's your expectation that other consumers would actually do that? In a nutshell, you know, the results were so very different. When you start looking at yourself as a consumer, the results rarely stagger down. But as an individual, when it comes to you as an individual, you know, it's a very high sense of responsibility which you have. And this is where we need to really connect the dots. You know, there are studies behind this and some mega trends which actually show that the amount of resources we actually conserve every day. US, for example, you know, manufactures paper which can actually circle the entire Earth 21 times every day. You know, imagine. That's the kind of consumption we have. And in 30 years' time, we will actually need 4 times the Earth if actually we use the same kind of resources. And taking an average, we'll actually use 2.3 times the Earth, taking an average of all countries' resources. But we can't invent more Earths. So the good news is that we can actually make a difference to people's lives. There are leaders who've met in United Nations leaders in New York a few quarters back, and this is the result of their top goals. Goals basically for human mankind. So the big question is, I mean, can we resolve poverty? Can we resolve hunger? Can we resolve the well-being of our society, education, and those big goals which they have actually set for us? These are the 17 goals which are actually translating to 169 targets, hundreds of indicators. And the interesting part is basically that if you talk about green printing, that actually targets 9 of these 17 goals. So it becomes really imperative for us to actually work around and understand what we as individuals can actually do while we move towards green printing. So what does this really mean? I mean, do we need to select technologies which are green? Do we need to print less? Do we need to select media or ink which is actually green? What does actually green mean for us? And we all have taken the journey of this. Many brands have actually taken the journey around green printing. And this is a combination of a whole lot of things. So, you know, it's about decreasing chemical wastage. It's about selection of a transformation from analog or traditional ways of printing to digital printing, so you can actually use less water. You have print on demand. You can use less recycling. using technologies, select technologies which have low VOC emissions. And you know, the good news is I feel proud to be a part of the organization which is in the top 5% of the sustainable organizations worldwide. We have a lot of goals in terms of recycling, in terms of how we create our products, many, many accolades, a part of the CDP program. And the way we do is basically connect the dots between three things. How do we really protect the planet? How do we support our people and strengthen our community? You've seen, you know, how many of you have seen this video which was actually playing just before my presentation on the water law? I don't have time for the video, but a few of you have already seen that. This is a great story of how this lady, a photographer, has really connected the dots between between green printing and a community message, how this can actually impact a common life. So Mary Jordan, when she was actually in Ethiopia, she actually was doing some photography and got really sick. And there was a small girl who tried to help her out by giving her some gifts, and she did not accept it. She said, you know, I don't want any gifts, but when you go back to US, do something about water here. So she went back and she kept thinking, and she saw all these water tanks in Manhattan. This became a viral campaign. She got a few people together. She told them the story of how water conservation is important, and she actually got these water tanks wrapped by the most environment-friendly material, which was Tyvek and latex inks. And this became an amazing campaign, actually. You know, the way she connected the dots was really, really impressive. Now, we as individuals have a lot of choice of different technologies. On the large format side, you have the solvent technology, UV technology, water-based. Every technology has its own advantages and disadvantages. In terms of solvents, it's a very fast technology, it's one of the oldest technologies, but it does smell a lot. It has very high amount of solvents. It needs ventilation, has a lot of hazardous components, can also stretch. A relatively newer technology is UV, which basically, where the curing is basically done by light. And then you can actually print on a lot of substrates, but because it's pigment-based, you can't really stretch and curl it. And a new technology so HP has gone through this series of solvent technologies in UV, and now we have the HP Water-Based Latex, where 70%, 60 to 70% of the ink is actually water. It's a technology which is very vibrant. Curing is actually done by heat, and you can actually stretch the material. We have a lot of things on display, basically, and you can talk to our print service providers to really know more about that. There are different technologies, different advantages, and you can actually talk to our PSPs and the HP team here to know more about this. Now, one of the things which is actually interesting in the western part of the world now and becoming more and more pervasive here in the East as well, is that hospitals are very stringent about what kind of products actually go inside the hospitals. How much is the VOC component? How much is the PM 2.5? It needs to be really, really environment friendly. HP latex inks are really, meet all the standards here. This was a very interesting story. Children are really claustrophobic. They don't want to get into these CAT scan machines. So what HP did in Europe was they actually took this hospital and they converted these machines to give a spaceship look and feel. So when the child actually goes there, he becomes a part of the crew. He becomes an astronaut. And basically, he looks forward to get into these and tells his story to his friends as well. It's not just about selection of the technologies. I mean, latex, of course, is getting into children's rooms and hospitals, but it's also about how you can actually tell this story. And I thought this was a classic example. One of our customers is doing this in Europe, and he's created these wallpapers which actually are games. So have a look at this video.
Castorama, the popular French DIY store, presents Magic Wallpaper, the first wallpaper that tells stories. On the wall, dozens of characters. Each character is actually a digital marker. You scan it via a dedicated app, and the story begins. But wait, that's not all. By scanning two characters, you can combine them. And that's how you get hundreds of stories. every type of combination becomes possible. Discover the adventure of the rainbow robot and the princess who didn't like dresses, or the jogging rhinoceros and the marine cat. Adventures to be read or listened to. Magic Wallpaper. Hundreds of stories to share as a family before going to sleep.
A simple augmented reality application which can be used here. We are also seeing this on our other side of the business, which is the HP Indigo digital presses, with children's books becoming more and more popular, where the child becomes the heroes of the book. In terms of some trends relative to India, this is a report from WHO which has recently come out. The top 10 polluted cities in the world out of 4,000 cities are in India. And it's kind of heartening to see the way they actually measure this is there's a hazardous compound which is called PM2.5, where the guideline from WHO is basically that it needs to be about 10 milligrams per cubic meter. In all these cities, it's close to about 143 to 170 milligrams, which is pretty high actually. So what are we really doing about this? I mean, organizations like Nike, Sony, Tesco, I mean, many brands, I'm sure your organizations as well, are becoming more and more sensitive to who they do business with. Is sustainability a criteria for people which you empanel on your procurement guidelines? HP does that as well. And we are seeing the regulations are increasing day by day. The number of purchasing criteria are increasing day by day. A whole lot of organizations have been working with HP on this. Coca-Cola is one big brand. We started this journey of transformation from analog to digital, working very close with Coca-Cola with the Share a Coke campaign. You would have seen that in India as well, which was launched recently. This is one of the examples of HP's Mosaic software, which actually takes a seed pattern and converts this into millions of patterns. So Coke actually launched this when they launched Diet Coke in Israel. And every single bottle was unique, something which can be actually taken in a lot of other product lines as well. Amarula did a very interesting, you would have seen this video just before my presentation, it was rolling. So they realized that there are about 400,000 elephants worldwide, and every 15 minutes an elephant dies because we wear those necklaces with ivory, and that kills elephants. Right? There are about 70,000 in a forest, in Amboseli forests in Africa. Amarula is the liqueur brand which comes from Africa. So HP worked with Amarula to print these labels. If you see this label, there's an elephant and there's a name written on it. And the concept was that you go to their website and you create this elephant, color the elephant, and give a name. If you give a name to somebody, that becomes your friend. You don't want to hurt them, right? So it was a very interesting campaign which became viral. For every label, there was $1 which was donated to the conservation. So taking sustainability to a different level altogether, we have a lot of certifications. I don't have time to go through this right now. I've been given signals already, but there are a whole lot of certifications that matter to our operators, matter to brands, matter to our community. Please do come forward and we'll extend this list to you. We have a network of thousands of machine installations countrywide. So that's clearly a USP with the kind of coverage which we have. If you travel to Singapore, this is a building basically we have, we call this a center of excellence. Over the last many years, we've collected different kind of applications. Many unique applications around the world are being showcased here. It's the world of digital printing. 21,000 meters facility. You're most welcome to come in. We'll be very happy to host your meetings there. A lot of brands who actually come in and experiment what they could do with our machines, our technologies. They say that it's like a playground and a child basically let loose on that playground. So it's a lovely place, I can bet you, and you're most welcome to come in here. I want to close with this very interesting quote from Jonas Stark. And he said that if all the insects were to disappear from Earth, within 50 years, all life on Earth would end. If all human beings disappeared from Earth, within 15 years, all forms of life would flourish. There's a lot of meaning actually in this quote. I mean, we have been gifted with this gift of human imagination, and as individuals, we need to really do something about this. We may not be able to see the fruits of what we do today, but let's do something meaningful for our children. Thank you so much.